I am Joel McLeod.
I'm Roland Tanner.
And welcome back to the Thursday 905 Roundup. We've got a jam-packed episode, so let's not waste any time and let's get right into it. Roland, what story are we starting off with today?
We started to hear hints late last week that there was a big announcement coming from the province with regard to Burlington's long-standing, long-running urban growth centre downtown development debate, and the promised change that the minister had already made about moving that urban growth centre from its location downtown up to the Burlington GO station area, which is basically echoes how Oakville arranged its focus for development back in the early 2000s. Sorry. So the announcement has indeed sort of come to light today, basically through the city announcing, giving out a press release or a media release, saying that with immediate effect, the minister has moved the urban growth centre and also removed the major transit station area designation from downtown. So, so far so good, I guess. These are things that certainly Lisa Kearns, the Ward 2 councillor, and the Mayor, Marianne Mead Ward, campaigned on at the last election. And so that has been achieved. However, as particularly noted by the Ward 2 councillor, the minister has also seen fit to exclude a number of major developments which are already on the books, so to speak, not approved necessarily, but in the process of approval.
They're grandfathered in. They got in underneath the wire. That's basically what the minister's saying.
Yeah. Those developments, there's 7 developments actually, sorry, not 6. Those developments which I'm just going to try and bring up the list while I'm talking, but undoubtedly include some of the most controversial and locally disliked developments that have been proposed for downtown. I believe including some major plans for Old Lakeshore Road, which is really where Marianne Mead Ward's municipal career started, was on protecting Old Lakeshore Road. And the developments, if they go ahead, will basically mean that not only has there been a failure to stop the kind of development that was envisaged in the mid noughties has not been stopped, but rather than the kind of 10, 15-story buildings we were fearing at that time, we're dealing with 30-story buildings.
Well, that's the cusp of it, isn't it? Like basically, this is what we were talking about just before we hit record. In the summer, the mayor and MPP for Burlington, Jay McKenna, and the minister for Municipal Affairs, Steve Clark, all had this great big love-in outside City Hall press conference where this big announcement of, it was made to sound like Burlington had won. They now have final say over how this is going to develop. And basically, it looks like the city got played for fools, in my opinion. They said, yeah, we'll move it, but basically we're moving it after the fact. What you wanted to do, we're not going to let done. And the reason why nothing is said for certain that it's going to move forward, that these developments are going to move forward and that it's a done deal. However, there's a big asterisk on that statement, and that statement is that they're now all in front of the Ontario Land Tribunal. And as we've discussed many, many times on this podcast, and if anyone watches the news, they know that that's pretty much a rubber stamp for development. We start talking this about the Lakeshore and Pearl development in Burlington and how that got approved despite, the city objecting to it. And it's this, the argument in that case was that the Land Tribunal said, hey, you've already got all these high rises. What's one more? Basically was the rationale. If they use that precedent, I don't see how you stop any of this stuff going forward.
Well, I'm caught in a conundrum between two things. Wanting to recognize, on the one hand, that if I'd won election when I ran in for council in 2018, if I'd won and if I had been part of delivering these things, I would be delighted right now, because it's like, this is what I said I would do, and I've done it. So from Marianne Ward's point of view, and perhaps from Lisa Kern's point of view, it's like, well, what the hell else do you expect me to have done? But at the same time, we have to recognize that the wheels of government move so darn slow that it's, certainly from many people's point of view, and I think I used the phrase last week, the barn door is open and the horse is gone. These huge buildings are already in the pipeline. The exact thing that this was all meant to be stopping, to create an environment for appropriate intensification and appropriate development downtown that would work within the context of the historic buildings that exist and the kind of neighborhood that residents have expressed a desire for. That's not going to happen because these buildings are already here.
Well, that's ultimately the problem, is that development doesn't depend on municipalities anymore. The power it clearly resides at the provincial level and at the Ontario Land Tribunal, and that's that's one of the things that we've been coming back to. It's a theme that we've kept coming back over in this podcast, is that Burlington can shake their fists at the moon all they want. It's not going to stop it from shining. Sorry, carry on, Joe. Well, I was saying, like, I find these arguments to be a bit disingenuous. Of, we're going to fight to preserve the nature and quality of Burlington, and I'm like, you haven't won anything. You got the minister to move the urban growth center, which I said it's not going to stop anything, and clearly I was right. Nothing is stopping these developments. Probably will go on. There'll be fights over how many stories or whatever have you, but that the buildings are going to happen.
I suspect what you're saying, Joel, will be much more appealing to listeners than what I would say, which is that moving the urban growth centre is the biggest tool available to the city and the major transit station area, what we used to call mobility hub. Mm-hmm. Moving those things takes away tools that were in the developers' hands, major tools. And if you look at downtown, downtown Burlington will now be in the same state as downtown Oakville. And if you look at downtown Oakville, there are no high-rises. And if you look at downtown Burlington, there are. So there should be, in a more sane world, they should be in a stronger position. Are the developers still able to point to precedent? Yes, but the city can now point to the province and say, look, the province moved things. They clearly didn't mean this not to be of any importance at all. So, yeah, it's very disappointing, I would think. And reading between the lines, I suspect, we're hoping to speak to a representative from the city in the next few days. Reading between the lines, Lisa Kern's statement on this suggested she was pretty darn disappointed. However, I guess you can say there's a lot more room downtown than for these 7 buildings, and maybe, I don't know, there'll be a reduction in the speed and extent. Here's
the thing, Roland. I don't think this matters at all. I think we're splitting hairs, and I think this is the argument that the development industry wants everyone to play into. We'll fight this, and we'll fight for these many stories, and it doesn't matter. They've won. Why? Because they have the government, the party that they want in power in Toronto. They are clearly on the side of development in this province. Look at all around us, not just Burlington, but look at Hamilton. Look at up near Halton and Vaughan with the 413 and the Bradford bypass. This government is all about tear it down, pave it over, build it up as quickly as possible. The development industry changes their argument to fit whatever the situation is. They know they can have this divide and conquer strategy. So in Burlington, it's, well, you need more intensification. We need to build denser populated cities. And then they come to Hamilton when Hamilton says, no, that's what we want. No, we got to expand. We need to build this white belt land that's undeveloped now. We need to bulldoze that and build there. And then, it's okay. Well, we need to build a highway. Why? Because we think we do. And this government is saying, yep, let's build. And we'll find a way to do it. And that's basically what this grandfathering clause is about is, okay, we can go and say, hey, we give the city what it wanted. It wanted to move the urban growth center from the downtown core to the GO stations. We'll give it to you. And they got the publicity that they wanted out of it. They got that press conference. They had the mayor come out and say, hey, this is fantastic. We got what we wanted. Thank you, Doug Ford. Thank you, Minister Clark. Thank you, Jane McKenna. Yippee. And then she did that before the ink, they even signed anything on the dotted line. And what happens? Oh, we're going to throw in this grandfathering clause. So these 7 developments that are on the books prior to the movement of the urban growth center, they now get to be considered as if there was an urban growth center. Like, as the arguments as they stood then are to be considered in front of the Ontario Land Tribunal. We can argue, say, oh, well, the urban growth center has been moved. I don't think it's going to change anything. Nothing has stopped the development from going forward as it happened. Like, I think that they're playing shuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic, and they think they're making a difference. And I'm talking about the municipalities at this point, and they're
I guess we're almost talking at cross purposes, and I completely agree with you about this provincial government, their attitude to developers, and the city has been using the tools at its disposal to do what it can. The tools at its disposal are very poor and very weak, and even when they succeed, I mean, and again, I can't not give some credit to the mayor and to this council for having gone as far as they did, because I mean, maybe it speaks to some kind of level of desperation or panic about trying to save Jane McKenna's seat. I don't actually think it. I don't know if they actually think it does, because I don't feel that the. I think the most likely outcome. I mean, let's not even talk about that yet.
It's politics. It's what you do. You throw your. Burlington's right now looking like a safer seat than ever. But you know what? You throw your backbencher line, a gift. And here's the thing: it's not about keeping her seat safe. It's about keeping her quiet. She's a backbench MPP, doesn't have a lot of sway in the caucus, I bet. But you know what? If you say, hey, we gave you that thing, we gave you cover so that you can take it and run with it in your riding, stay in line, stop rocking the boat. We gave it to you. That's it. You're never going to hear from them again. They'll never come back in, but they got what they want. And they said, well, we can play them for fools. We give Jane a cover. She looks like the hero, but at the same time, we got to satisfy our donors, which is the development industry. So what do? Oh, throw in a grandfathering clause. We got the press conference, and the city council is pissed off. They do what every city council does, and every other grassroots organization. They get pissed off, and they all bitch and moan about this many stories or that many stories. Yet nobody talks about actually, like, hey, how do we take control back? Because the current,
and that again I mean, we haven't talked about it yet today, and it's the great unspoken discussion that. Yeah, that was absolutely how I felt after the last election, when I was kind of looking at, so how am I going to stay involved in things in whatever way? And it was this feeling that, the real fight is at the province level. And for whatever reason, the fight is not happening at the provincial level.
No.
I mean, in Burlington, everybody talks about Marianne Mead Ward and what she's doing. Everybody talks about the councillors. Everybody talks about, has Marianne let us down? Did Marianne promise us more than she could deliver? Who cares about Marianne? It's the province that's the problem. Right. And when I say it's the province, I don't necessarily just mean Doug Ford. I mean, any government that forms a government at Queen's Park is basically going to be. None of them that I'm aware of have suggested any significant change to the way that development and planning happens.
But here's why. Here's the dirty little secret. It's political cover. If the Liberals or the NDP, they get elected to power. Let's say hypothetically, Andrea Horwath becomes premier next election. Hypothetically, she's not going to change the system, and because it's not in her intent, in her benefit to change the system. The system works because you can cherry pick where development goes. You can muck around the rules a little bit so that it becomes more difficult. And that way your local MPPs look, hey, I'm the hero of the day. I stopped this development. I stopped this, I stopped that. But to actually go in and say, let's rewrite the law so that the cities actually are the final arbitrators of where development goes. The city must develop a system, an impartial and fair system to develop their own municipalities and their own infrastructure. That will never happen because you take the power away from MPPs who can come in at the 11th hour and say, hey, I saved the day. Or in the case of the Conservatives, come in and get lots of money from developers and from the development industry by saying, I can come in and I can just pave paradise to build a highway or a couple more housing developments or a couple more high rises, whatever the case may be, and I can make it worth your while. It's the entire thing is just pure politics. Because the easiest way just to end it would be give it to the municipalities and say, here are the targets you have to meet them.
Well, it was disappointing. I know Michael Coteau was the one candidate in the Liberal leadership, I believe, who was talking about the concept of allowing municipalities to kind of become almost like minor provinces, which basically means that cities be able to elect to have the right to be independent of the province and to set their own agendas in a way that they currently can't. That idea went down the top, disappeared because he didn't win the leadership. Ironically, I would say Stephen Del Duca is probably the most pro developer of the candidates at that Liberal. And Andrea Horwath never says a peep about development, really. No. I mean, if she says a lot, I've missed it, and I apologize. I'm happy to receive all the. I mean, I get. The media releases coming from the NDP all the time, and I never see anything about development coming out. And I don't get why not, because it's a vote winner. But what we have right now is, as you say, a kind of divide and conquer, because the PCs are resolutely pro-developer. Yeah, Jane McKenna is going to be able to present herself at the next election as kind of a savior of Burlington against the developer, which is simply not true. I mean, this is the woman who had a photograph taken at the universally loathed Carriage Gate development on Brant Street opposite City Hall, who's now going to be saying, well, look, I saved downtown Burlington. I know we've mooted it a few times before, why well, I guess I do get, actually, and it's because municipalities are inherently short-sighted and kind of only interested in their own little areas. But I feel that what should happen is the AMO, the Association of Ontario Municipalities, or whatever they're called now. These guys, the municipalities need to be kind of ganging up on the province collectively for their collective interest. But how it works is, and we've seen this with the MZO issue, that on the one hand, people are saying, well, the use of MZOs is an absolute farce for local democracy. And the minister just comes in and overrules everything. Meanwhile, the municipalities who are on the one hand being shafted by this use of MZOs are lining up to ask for the minister to do things for them using MZOs, because it's so incredibly short-sighted and counterproductive to their own long-term interests.
That's the thing. That until the municipalities kind of say, we're not going to take it anymore, this will just go on in forever.
It's the issue that is the defining issue of the 9 and 5 for this decade, at least. And I fail to understand, I know I've said it, I'm repeating myself, I'm going to repeat it one final time. I fail to understand why this isn't a bigger provincial issue when it's such a massive municipal issue, and why the municipalities can't make it a provincial issue through their collective actions. that seems to be what needs to happen to me. Anyway, let's move on.
Democracy.
Another story from Hamilton.
Democracy.
Democracy collapsing somewhere else in a different way. Well, maybe not democracy collapsing, but democracy not not really happening is a way to describe it. So Hamilton has appointed a temporary councillor until the next election. The person they selected
is Russ Powers, who's a former Dundas councillor. So for those who are not aware, the former Ward 5 councillor was just been elected to the federal in the last federal election. I can't speak there. Chad Collins is going to Ottawa to represent Hamilton East Stony Creek as a Liberal, which meant, of course, there's a vacant seat on Hamilton City Council. So normally how one would think this would work is, hey, nobody's sitting there. We still have months left in the term. Let's have a by-election and have the people of Ward 5 elect someone to represent them. That did not happen. Instead, we had what appeared to me, and this I didn't go into it in detail, but it appeared to me was just a really long job interview with a number of prospects who came forward to say, I want the job, applying to city council, and they all come hat in hand in front of city council at a meeting and basically beg the city council, can you give me the job? Can I be the Ward 5 councillor? Can I play politician for a few months? And the city council had a vote, and in the end, the majority elected Russ Powers to represent them. Now, I don't know Russ Powers at all. I have no say of whether or not he will be good or not for the people of Ward 5 or to sit on city council. I quite frankly don't care. I look at it and say, he does not have the mandate of the Ward 5 people. He has the mandate of a majority of councillors on Hamilton City Council. That's it. And those people would be Maureen Wilson, Narinder Nan, Esther Pauls, John Paul Danko, Judy Partridge, Arlene Vanderbeek, Brenda Johnson, and Brad Clark, the ones who voted for him. Those people are who I think Russ Powers is really beholden to, not the people of Ward 5, which is, it's a sad state of affairs that's how Hamilton City Council will operate for the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should have been. I think there should have been a by-election. Cities have the power under the Municipal Act to do this. I don't really think they should in this day and age. Again, all these things, so many things in the Municipal Act kind of go back to the time when city councils were, a kind of cozy board of directors for the city.
Wasn't that large thing. Like the town council was literally like you knew everybody in the room, and everybody was like your neighbor, your best friend, or the mayor was also a part-time doctor or part-time vet that you had over to your farm right after city council let out. That's.
And Russ Powers is basically, many people were saying on Twitter last week that Russ Powers' selection was a good thing. Basically, it was a good thing because it wasn't Larry Diani, and that this was the Stop Diani candidate, and Russ Powers was able to get enough support from a couple of the more conservative, old school councillors to get them to vote for him rather than Diani. Diani, they've both the two who both received votes, just Larry Diani and Russ Powers, have both been lobbyists at various points. Diani is a current lobbyist at City Hall, and he is also very outspoken against the kind of what is perceived as the new councillors, or the people who support the newer councillors and who are looking for a larger scale change on council. He was the one who described the kind of cabal of university intellectuals who were trying to take over the city a few weeks ago. I mean, you would have thought that alone would rule him out of contention, but apparently not. but I don't really see this as much of a victory. I'm not sure. If you're going to go ahead and do this and not pay any attention to and not hold a by-election, you would hope that the person who came second in the last election, who was one of, I believe, Juanita Maldonado. I believe came second in the last election. I mean, fair enough, it was a very distant second, but it was still second in the election. You would hope that she would have received much more credence. From what I've heard from a couple of people on Twitter, she represented herself very well. But no doubt that was enough to rule her out, because she would have been, progressive, maybe pro-LRT.
Well, there's a number. There's a number of votes that are on the slate in front of City Hall, City Council in Hamilton. One is LRT, making sure that gets. I mean, it's pretty much a done deal. But you want somebody who's not going to try and muck up the process and kind of help facilitate the necessary movements going forward. But there's the question about. We had the Stop Sprawl Ham-on people on a few weeks ago. There's a question about the White Belt in Hamilton. What is going to happen with this stretch of land? Is City Council going to vote to expand the urban boundary or not? And that's, that's something you want. Again, I don't know Russ Powers personally. I don't really have a background on where he's going to stand. I don't know what his political stance are, mostly because he didn't campaign. I'm sure if he campaigned, this question of where are you going to vote on this issue would have come up. We don't know. We don't know. And and we can't hold him to account to say, hey, you said you were going to vote this way, and you said and then you came out and you voted the other way. Not saying that he will, but it's this kind of black hole of what, how people have a right to ask your candidates, how are you going to vote on this? Are you in favor of redevelopment? Are you in favor of expansion? Are you in favor of LRT development? Would you have been gumming up the works with bureaucratic mucking about?
Well, and the way these things work. I mean, if I'm any judge of how councils operate at all, which some would probably say I'm not, but if I'm any judge at all, a good candidate. A good candidate is at a distinct disadvantage going into a selection process like that, because no one wants to put some. And the other thing is putting someone into council right now, less than a year before election, and incidentally, almost rushed days ahead of one of the most important votes that the council is going to take in perhaps the next 20 years on the urban expansion. Which is, very telling that they kind of pretty much tried to bring this forward so this person could get a vote. It's really a farce. Whoever that person is, Russ Powers now has an advantage, a big advantage going into the next election, because he is the incumbent. Incumbency in local democracy is everything. So to do that, and again, that was why they wanted Deanne, because he's one of the old boys club, and he's a good old guy, and he votes the right way with all those old creeps. Excuse my language, but a few of them really are, who are on Hamilton Council. Thank God he was stopped. I don't hold out any great hope. I don't think Russ Powers should be appointed this way and now have a far easier avenue to staying on council at the next election than his opponent. Again, as I understand it, Juanita Maldonado was the candidate who came second at the last election, and from the very little I know, and I'm very much saying this at second and third hand, is a fine person to be considered for the job. So why the hell wasn't she given more respect?
Well, I don't know about that. I just think that should have. It doesn't matter who should have been given more respect or who should have been given the job. The job should have gone to whoever was elected, whoever got elected by the people of Ward 5. That's who I care about. That I really don't give a rat if Larry Deanne won, or if Russ Powers won, or if Juanita won. I don't give two rats of a or two shakes of a rat's ass about who won. I care about the process because the people of Ward 5, I think, got screwed over. It's and you know what? They just, again, I think the city council has made a short-changed decision that sold people short in the city of Hamilton. That's all.
Well, I completely agree there. It should have been a by-election. I mean, the only really thing I'm adding here is that by selecting someone, they've now prejudiced the next election, and knowingly so. Be no fine and well that that's the case.
Last short brief. I just want to touch upon this before we sign off for the night. So we're recording this on Tuesday night, and the big news came down that Erin O'Toole, it looks like he's facing a internal rebellion in the Conservative Caucus. And the only reason why I bring this up in the 905 is because if you are aware of your geography and aware of your politics, you'll be aware that Erin O'Toole is a 905er. We've actually tried to have him on the podcast a couple of times, but no luck. Maybe now he will. So he as anyone could have predicted after the Conservative loss in the last federal election, the knives are out for him. And basically, a couple of days ago, Denise Batters took to Twitter. Senator Denise Batters, who is a staunch conservative appointed by Stephen Harper during the last mandate, but she took to Twitter to basically call for a removal of Erin O'Toole. She put out a petition for Conservative Party members to sign to basically demand his resignation or a leadership review so that they could oust him from the position of leadership as part of the Conservative Party caucus constitution. However, that cost her. Today, Erin O'Toole said, "Nope, you're out. You're no longer a conservative." And I mean, I'm not going to say whether or not it's right. If I was Erin O'Toole, I'd do this. In fact, I tweeted it, and I'm like, Erin, I want my consultation check for taking my free advice. I said, like, Erin should just kick her out. To say, no, you want to do this? We're going to play hardball. I'll kick you out, and just say who's next. And yeah, I'm eager to see where this plays out, because I think this might be the unraveling of Stephen Harper's coalition, because it definitely seems to be two parties within the Conservative Party. One is kind of a more moderate, sensible party, one that accepts that COVID is real, vaccines work, climate change is real, and we need to use market devices to help combat it. And Erin O'Toole had tried to push this idea through. The infamous bit during the policy conference a while back was that he tried to have the Conservative Party just admit climate change is a threat and it must be acted upon. And that was too controversial for a number of members of the party, and it was voted down. I think this is the start of an unraveling of the Conservative Party. I can't picture these two sides are too far apart. And I would think I'd just argue this has been unraveling for a while. The fact is that in our current climate, and our current electoral system, that still doesn't stop them taking elections remarkably close. But any party that can choose Andrew Scheer as a leader, I feel is already unraveling. I mean, I think the thing that fascinates me with these people, I mean, I'm just reading here the quote from the senator about why O'Toole should be booted out. It's like, well, he ran as a true blue leadership candidate, but he then did a 180-degree turn and ran on a campaign that was nearly identical to the Liberals. Now, what I remember about the last election was that in the early days, the Conservatives were doing slightly better than expected. And that was while the Conservatives were actually managing to talk about policy. And when it all turned back to the Liberals again is when they got forced off policy, when the Liberals and the media found stories about Conservatives saying dumb things, and when the PPC morons started throwing rocks at the Prime Minister. It wasn't the policy that was the problem. I don't understand how
right-wing conservatives, like even more right-wing conservatives, can ever argue that a move further to the right is the right thing? Because it's like, well, where do those votes come from? It's the old thing I used to say about the Labour Party is like, well, the Labour Party has to live in the centre because the left's going to vote for them anyway. This is in the UK, obviously.
Well, that's
so you can assume your coal miners and your real old school socialists are going to vote for you because they've got nowhere else to go.
The problem in the Conservative Party is, and it's kind of the same with all political parties in Canada, I think, is you think you have a big tent, but you really don't. You just have the same people showing up all the time. The Liberals are positioned to win because they do fall in the middle, in the center, and they are able to kind of pivot back and forth to capture enough of the vote as they can, and that's how they keep winning. The problem with the Conservatives, and this is the problem with that I thought Erin O'Toole had, is that Erin O'Toole strikes me as a very sensible guy. I mean, he wants market ideas to solve some big issues, and I'll give him credit. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with some of them, but they're not really out there like, oh my God, this guy, nothing about Erin O'Toole really scared me. It was a believability issue. He said one thing and they come back to, well, I don't really mean that. I'm going to do this and this. So you had the believe, that was the issue, believability. But I think the problem was that he tried, you saw he was trying to bring the party back to reality. The fact is that, I go back to the climate change issue. He clearly, I think Erin O'Toole gets climate change is a very real existential threat to humanity, and that Canada needs to play a part in the solving of this crisis. The problem is, I think he also realizes, holy shit, the majority of people in my party think that's the lie. How do I, how do I lead this party to victory when half the people are crazy?
Well, and when the foundation of your party and its sort of heartland is an oil field,
that's the other
state.
I thought Erin O'Toole was an interesting choice. I thought, maybe we'll get back into how do we get the market to help, a 21st century economy, green technology, solar panels, wind turbines, the knowledge economy kind of going again, and how do we get that? Open up those doors and those markets for post-COVID-19 recovery. And instead it's we got to dig for more oil because, that's where our base is. Our base is in Saskatchewan and Alberta, and all they know is oil. They cannot picture a future of Canada where oil is a thing of the past. They just can't.
In fact, I wasn't even aware of until this evening. Was that the Conservative Party has Conservative MPs voted themselves the right to decide who should be booted from caucus and who shouldn't. So the leader can't even boot a rebel from caucus. Now they can in the Senate, hence Senator Batters has been given the heave-ho, although she won't lose her job, she'll just lose the party whip. But an MP is saying the same thing. The leader can't even stop them doing it. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster in party politics as it works.
I do think the writing's on the wall. I don't think, as kudos for Erin O'Toole for kicking out Denise Batters is the first definitive move I've seen him make as leader in 2 years, I guess. But it will. I think it's a matter of too little, too late. I think there are too many people who are right now looking at Denise and the knives are sharpening for Erin O'Toole. I think Erin would know it, and I think he's playing to. I think we're at the start of a very messy civil war within the Conservative Party, and which is sad because Trudeau does have a minority government. You're basically handing Trudeau another majority for the next few years. I
don't think anybody's going to get a majority.
Not anytime soon, but
you're handing him a more stable.
Well, no, but if you want to, I think it's an effective majority because they're like the Conservatives are not going to take down the. They're just they can't. They don't. Maybe they will. Maybe they're just crazy and they'll vote it all down. Who knows? But they'll be eaten alive, I think, at the polls if they did that. I just think it's going to be an interesting few months. It's going to be a bloody few years. It's
Well, and there's rumours, of course, that the Liberals and the NDP are negotiating much more closely this time around than previously. And to be honest, I hope that's the case.
We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, they should do.
Well, I think that's our episode for today. We're coming up on the closing mark. People are getting tired of listening to us, Roland, so I'm going to call her quits and call it a night. But thank you, everyone, for listening. Please go check out our Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links in our show notes. And also check out our sponsor, South River Brewing. Again, links in the show notes. Throw them a few bucks if you can. Be greatly appreciated, and we will talk with you next week. Take care. That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.